if you go back to that professional example, if you go back to the professional example, you want to enter a new market, there are specific agents with specialized functions. And then there are agents, there is a multi-agent framework that actually orchestrates all of that together. So in a multi-agent system, each agent operates independently, has its own objectives, can make decisions, but they also communicate through structured protocols. So some of the key characteristics of multi-agent systems are autonomy, that, in the sense that each agent is allowed to perform its own individual function. Distributed problem solving. Every agent has its own problem that it's trying to solve, but also coming together. Communication and coordination, extremely important. Adaptability. Hey, tomorrow we want to enter the French market, to adaptability in terms of taking that multi-agent system and adapting it to a new market. And scalability in terms of how growth and achieving all different kind of like micro markets can actually hopefully be achieved. We're actually living in a world of multi-agent systems too. There are specific multi-agent systems, whether we realize it or not, that we're touching. If automated trading platforms, agents to buy, agents to sell, agents to do research that actually come together to be able to do trading platform. It's amazing to actually see how much financial services this industry is actually adopting agents, which traditionally has been looked upon as a very regulated industry. And so you would think it's slow to adoption, but they're really they're showing some great innovation there. Robotics, warehouses, disaster responses are great examples of multi-agents coming together, where you have single agents doing specialized tasks, whether it is, paving the way or for a specific robot in a warehouse, and also making sure that that robot is able to achieve its ultimate goal about getting from place A to place B with all of its constraints. So we're actually living in a world where there are some examples of multi-agent systems already. Now,
Subha,
how did multi-agent
hi.
systems come about?
I'm sorry.
Yes, Sue.
I don't mean to break your flow, but there was a really important question, which was, do multi-agent systems have a shared goal, or can they all have individual goals?
It's a great point. Every agent has its own goal. A multi-agent system has a goal. And I'll talk a little bit about some examples of how this actually comes together. But the goal-based approach of agents is extremely important. Without a goal, it's not an agent. So every agent has its own goal, and a multi-agent system has a goal. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. Any other questions, Sue, that is relevant?
No, I think we can proceed. I can bring those questions back towards the end.
Okay, awesome. So how did we get here in terms of multi-agent systems? Over the last few years that AI tools and technologies have proliferated, everybody has been making their own AI applications, etc., with their own custom implementation, custom prompt logic, custom tool calls, custom data access. Now, this is all good and done in a world where we might not want things to interact with one another. But the problem is that when they start interacting with one another, it gets really, really messy. And imagine debugging what an AI app is doing from a vendor with another AI app that the company is actually building. It's very difficult to be able to bring all of those together, and is a complete drain on our resources. So unstructured multi-agent systems, if we try to actually force them to actually work with each other, is very, very messy. For rightfully so, because they've all followed their own thread in a way. So multi-agent systems have been introduced as protocols and hierarchy to streamline communication, coordination between agents and standardized development. So you take any protocol client, Claude, Cursor, etc., or anything that you have, you would have certain protocols by which you would connect with databases, with say CRM applications. You would have version control, and you can actually add to this, but imagine this to be more standardized across the board. And then there is an important facilitation and an orchestration layer for assigning tasks, hierarchy, feedback, and importantly, safety, right, in terms of reducing hallucinations and also increasing accuracy. So let's bring this to life a little bit. There are many types of multi-agent systems. This again is a bleeding edge topic. It's evolving as we speak. But the three main types are cooperative, competitive, and mixed. So cooperative agents work together towards a shared goal. have you heard of this Airbus Skywise health monitoring system? It's basically a system that Airbus built to ensure that they they spend the least amount of time actually troubleshooting an airplane and fixing it before it actually takes off on the next flight. Um, uh, so they have multiple agents actually one checking pilot controls, one checking fuel levels and quality, and then a multi-agent system that actually comes together that actually says, yes, the plane is ready and ready to take off. So to the question of like individual goals and overall goals, this is actually one of the examples of that. Now, competitive agents pursue conflicting goals, often competing for resources. Again, financial services example, if any of you is a Goldman Sachs marquee customer, you have multiple agents working for you. One that is incentivizing you to sell, another incentivizing you to buy, and most of them, and most importantly, they're both competing to be able to give you the right output to say what is the best output right now for like Vikash or Sue that would help them maximize their returns on this transaction. So competing for resources, but still they would come together to produce one single output and action for you. And then there's mixed. They cooperate and compete, and they form some temporary alliances. Autonomous driving, Waymo, etc., is a great example of that, where they compete to be able to get your business, your booking. But once the booking is established, they cooperate in terms of sending signals so that they're able to inform each other about, the road conditions, etc. So compete and cooperate. So you're also already seeing a lot of this happening right now that, I wanted to kind of like, just make sure we're aware of that. Two leading multi-agent system protocols out there: MCP, Model Context Protocol by Anthropic, and Agent to Agent by Google. Um, I think it wouldn't be wrong to say that Vikash and I are both fans of MCP by Anthropic. I think they really have a security first approach, which is very, very enterprise friendly and very structured. Although one of the downsides of that is that it's a very niche adoption. There is some local, deployment bias, etc., which I think they're looking to kind of improve. On the other hand, Google, as with most products, is open sourced. It's platform vendor neutral, and interestingly, they are actually going after supply chain and operations use cases a lot right now. There is a lot of opportunity in this space, but there is also a lot of threat in terms of this could lead to further tool fragmentation, further closed ecosystems, and these are not cheap to build. So in your company, if you are evangelizing or thinking about a multi-agent solution, I wouldn't put short-term ROI as one of the benefits of this moving forward, because these are not cheap. A quick 30-second demo on how multi-agents work together. This is an engineer trying to hire an engineer. This is with Google Agent Space. It initiating the process, and as you can see, a sourcing agent now comes into the mix. Sourcing agent is now looking for candidates, asking some questions, some back and forth. And then you can see how it's going to perform. The cool thing about agents is that you have to show the thinking, and the more agentic products actually show the thinking, the better. Now, the sourcing agent has come up with some people. The hiring manager says, please reach out to schedule the interviews. 2 weeks later, once all the interviews are complete, which is still a manual process, you can just go in and say, get an update. And then it will tell you that there are top 3 candidates and they're waiting for background checks. All right, initiate background checks. And then it initiates a background check agent that actually goes in and does the background checks for you. So you see how multiple agents interact with their own specific goals to be able to get to the overall goal of getting a software engineer in a specific location for this hiring manager. That's it from my end. Now we will turn it over to human agent Vikash for a live demo on this.
Hey everyone, and hey Sue, I did unmute myself this time.
Yes. Oh,
So
I lost $1. Come on, man.
I'm a self-improving agent in some way or form. But hey everyone, so thanks Subha, that was great. Want to kind of quickly talk about some of the demos, right? And there's a typo over here. Humans make that mistake sometimes, but I have two demos for you. One is what I call the multiple human agent demos, and what you just saw was Sue, myself, and Subha, three of us collaborated to kind of deliver this presentation to you, right? And there was a lot of collaboration that was required. And how did we kind of go about doing this? And I think it's important to kind of understand and see things as the reason we are calling ourselves human agents is we want to drive a parallel that a lot of the work that you do, you will start to see is as you start to build the multi-agent, if you just kind of look back into your day-to-day life and how you're operating, it's going to give you a lot of clue around how you should build. So for designing this presentation, we had to kind of make a decision. It's like, hey, what is our goal? Like, what do we want to achieve from this presentation? That was defined early on. And then we kind of broke up into the tasks, like what should Shu take up? What should Shubha take up? What should Vikash take up? And as we have kind of defined, like we independently went back and kind of executed, and we worked on a loop till we had like enough checkpoints where we kind of made sure that there are different aspects of the checkpoint, and this is guardrailing and checking to make sure is the length okay, is the quality, how do we think about it, and just like anything else, we could have gone super deep into each other's feedback. We could have gone into like how much, how do we, can we go into the details of what exactly will Vikash speak, what exactly would Subha speak, how should should we have intervention which says that your mic is muted, and should we have that action play or not? And all of those things actually can show what an agent should. And just like we can overdo things here in the human world, you can also overdo things in an agentic world. At the same time, if the mission, the thing is mission critical in a way where you're making a large presentation, you're saving somebody's life, you're doing something else, it's okay to be kind of like a mission, critical about it. It's okay to kind of have much more checkpoint. And that would include what we call is like the collaboration tax, right? Like much more collaboration tax would be there. The overhead would be okay. And this is one of the questions I saw that coming in even on the questionnaire is like how much agents collaboration is okay or not. There is no one way to kind of say. At the best, we could have just emailed each other as like, hey, we are meeting at this date, just come prepared with the slides and we'll present. And that would be one way kind of do it. Another would be like an extremely different way to kind of do it. So there are two ways to kind of really learn. I think there are two ways you can really look at how many agents you should have and how should you kind of go about doing this. Look at one would be kind of learning from your organizational design. And like you're trying to figure out how many, just like in an organization, you have a CEO, you may have VPs, directors, managers, employees, and you can follow the structure of that, right? And if you're a smaller company, guess what? There's just CEO, it's a solopreneur, it's a single agent. Or maybe there are two or three of us like they're kind of working together. So when you're designing, think about, can you design it like an organization? Or if you're coming from a technology background, or you've worked a lot on like some of those things, think about how many microservices are required. There is no limit to. I was talking to a tech company. I can't take the name of the company, but those guys, they went from monolith to microservices, and they said now we have like nano services. Like every 2 lines is a service, and now they're having the other problem where because of that, they're having a significant challenge around overheads and everything else. So how many of them is unknown, but start with the minimum. I would say start with one when you have to, and like expand out as you need to, kind of like stop the urge of kind of building a lot of the agents. So maybe what we thought is like, why don't we kind of actually show you guys how do you kind of build one of these agents? And we selected Crew AI to kind of make the demonstration, mainly because it's simpler. It has the drag and drop kind of a things and a lot of the other things. So what we'll do is, I thought just for fun, What if we kind of build, and I'm just going to say it out loud and try to use the microphone feature. Let's see if it works. But what if we can, let me define what we are building, and I'll talk about while it is building, why we are doing that. Hey, Crew AI, I would like to kind of build a multi-agentic system which helps a company's cafeteria to decide what food should they serve in the kitchen today. The food that we serve should be depending upon the restrictions that folks have within the company. So if we have like vegans and others, it should propose a food that that can be useful for them. But I also would like to kind of you to figure out using the weather, if the weather is going to be cold or hot given a particular location, right? So if you provide you the location, the city, find if the weather is going to be hot, cold, or rainy, and based on that, choose the right dish to cook within the cafeteria. I would also like you to kind of provide the recipe and the shopping list for that. Please build the multiple agent system for that. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and hit. There are some typos in there, but that's okay. What's beautiful about this is like Crew AI actually has an agent of their own, which kind of goes out and kind of builds it out. And it builds it out. I'm going to walk you through a few different things, right? First is, if you look on the left-hand side, it's thinking through what it is doing. And it's saying that it is getting the list to ready-to-use tools, because Crew AI already has access to a few tools. Let's see if I can find those tools here. Right. So you can see that Crew AI has access to a lot of tools, and it is trying to make a decision based on my request that what tools that it should be using. You can see that it has started to kind of add some of these agents as they're kind of coming up. You can see that they have like a weather information specialist, which is basically saying that I'm going to use the Serper dev tool. It's like a search tool. It is going to go search for the weather and bring it back. It is also looking at a dietary restriction analyst tool and a menu planning chef, right? As well, it's starting to create all of these agents. Crew AI is going to connect it in a certain way, and that may or may not be the best way to kind of do it, but we'll talk about that. But what is each of the agents as you define it? As you can see that they have the goal of creating the shopping list coordinator as well as the recipe. And if I look at each of them, and when you go there, you can hit the edit button, right? It shows a few things. First of all, it's saying what is the role the agent has to play. In this particular case, it says the weather information specialist, and it has a choice as to what model to use. And this is really, you want to choose based on models' capabilities. Some models are going to be, if it is a simple task like weather, I think I can choose even like a cheaper model here, right? I don't need to kind of spend a lot of tokens and money. I'll choose a cheaper model. And it has selected like a search for the internet with Serper. It has selected Serper as a search engine. If I had Google search or some other search or have our own built-in, if you're searching your own database of users, you would use that. And it has things like LLM settings, which talks about temperature, which tells in how creative should it get. What's the how much of reasoning should it happen? What's the response? Sometimes you may want to get the response back in a JSON rather than a human way of kind of doing it, right? And not only that, for each of the agents, it also puts out the instructions for the agent. And so in this particular case, if I look at the instructions, it says that, well, research the current weather condition for location. And you can see it uses a bracket. That means it's a way for me to kind of pass a parameter to it and determine if it's hot, cold, or rainy, provide insight on how the weather should influence today's cafeteria menu choices. What I don't like about it is like the agent is probably thinking about what are the cafeteria menu choices to do with this. So there is not enough context. So if I were to kind of build that, I would actually go ahead and either provide them or not even worry about it and say, it's like, hey, you don't need to worry about what I'm going to do with this information. You just know that hot, cold, and rainy is all I care about. Why this works out interestingly, to kind of like provide the overall goal is like sometimes it can, knowing why the information will be used and how, which goes back to the comment question in the chat was like, how much goal should each of the agents should have? I take two approaches. One is like, you don't need to know anything. You just do the job that is given. It's like almost like a microservice. Or sometimes I would say, look, this is really how I'm going to use this output that you provide and why. And what that does is it really helps the agent get you the right answer in a way when there is ambiguity there. Whether may or may not be as ambiguous, actually it can be ambiguous, and it really forces the system to kind of do that better. If there are any questions, just pause me. I'm not able to see the comments. And then what it does is like it takes that information, passes on to the next one, which is a dietary restriction. Very similar in terms of like the agent configuration, but look at the instructions itself. Based on the weather analysis and dietary restriction that was passed here, the menu should include 2-3 dishes. Do we want 2 or 3 dishes in the cafeteria? Do we want to have like a spread? Do we want to have a separate menu for like vegan versus non-vegan? And all of those things can be actually specified here. From here, it kind of goes to, once you have the list of the names of the menu that you want, it goes into the planning chef, which says that, well, actually, that was the planning chef. It's the way it has done it. The second one is directory, then the planning chef, and then it generates the recipe, which says that, can you generate a detailed recipe of what we need for the number of people that we have? And then ultimately, it would build a shopping list coordinator. So if I have to run it, I have a few choices, right? We can either automatically, actually, let me just hit run and provide some of this information. I'll just say San Jose, California, dietary restriction. I'll say vegan. Of course, you will build a better model with, you can say that so many people are vegan, so many people have other restrictions, peanut allergies. And let's say I'm cooking it for 100 folks. One thing you will see is that it actually shows that every time we have the curly braces, it just replace that. And this information you can be pulling in from a database. You don't have to give it manually. So they actually run from one to another. And you can see all of the preview provides that. And if I hit execute, what it does is it will, it should run. It said failed to start. So I don't know what's going on. We'll come back to that, but there's so many different ways to trigger this. Within Crew AI, it provides me a way to kind of say that, hey, I can actually receive an email, and from the email I can get all the information and see. So you can send an email, it's like, hey, today weather report is this, and it can trigger that. Or for example, I've connected my calendar. So based on the food, so what if I'm like a cafeteria which is serving into events, and all of a sudden my calendar or this Luma event can be connected, and we know how many people are actually attending, what are their dietary preferences. And now this agent can be fired up based on that, and so many others. This is just what Crew AI provides. However, you can actually build your own triggers. It can also be schedule based, like every morning, just go and, because as the team comes in, I want you, every 24 hours, I want you to kind of go generate this, and you can manage that. Right? Let's see if the execution is working. If it's not, what I can do is I did run like a similar one before. So hopefully you guys can see what the execution looks like. Too bad. It does not. Okay. Let me just hit that again. So sorry, folks, I think I'm having some technical difficulty. Let me see if any of the other ones has the execution logs. No, but I wanted to kind of like show you guys a couple of other things here quickly. One is, this is something else that I built, which was on smart email marketing automation. You can actually create an email template. You can segment the users through Google Sheets. So we have kind of like used a Google Sheet to kind of generate that. The first one was using like an image generator to generate an image. It personalizes for the segment. Like if we know that this person is a product manager versus an engineer or something else, or like a preferences, it does the analytics and send time optimization. It figures out like based on your time zone and others, like when you should send out the email, and then it uses Google email to send it out. So you can use it for different purposes, right? So this is how you can build a lot of these things. Super easy. I highly recommend like you just go ahead and try. And what Crew AI has is like, if you just kind of like, if you don't know what to build, you can just come and click one of those. It's gonna pre-populates it. So it's a great one to kind of start with, but then ultimately ask you to kind of go out and build your own as well. What it also allows you to do is you can actually download the entire code and in Python and give it to your engineers. If you're able to kind of deploy it yourself, you are able to take that Crew AI Python code, or they may support other languages as well, and do the same thing. But coming back, right, like with the demo, one thing is clear, like it's much more simpler to kind of design these agents once you have the tools and you know what you're trying to do. But what I've seen is most people struggle with, and the biggest challenges today are in the design patterns. And the challenges mostly are what we call as the collaboration tax, which is more agents is equal to more overhead. Parsing and message parsing reduces efficiency, right? As you have more and more of them, what is the right amount of collaboration tax? And there's a latency issues. Like if you have so many different agents, there could be a huge amount of latency because each of the agent has to kind of go execute. What if the person is actually waiting? In this case, you saw actually Crew AI was generating this stuff one by one, and that's latency. What if I could somehow make it faster? Complexity, at some point it becomes complex and it becomes non-deterministic. So your outcomes can become in such a way that it is very hard for you to kind of know what's going on, and evaluating how do you grade these models and agents. We won't have time to kind of go through in a lot of detail, but I'll just quickly run through some of the patterns. The simplest is the sequential pattern that Subha actually showed, which means that you just also what we have done with the meal planner, it actually takes 1, 2, and 3, like just 3 different steps. It's great. It's the simplest pattern that you can use. The second is what we call is a parallel, which is a fan out and a fan in. In this particular case, I actually didn't need to wait for the weather information and the dietary preferences in 2 different sequential models, right? Like we could parallelly would have fired off 2 agents to kind of parallelly work and bring back and collab it together. And this really helps with the latency. If your agents have, think about where can you parallelize. There's a loop pattern. It continues to iterate in a cycle until a particular outcome is achieved. So you may, for example, if you may have you want to write ad copy for something, and you generate an ad copy, generated an image, you generated a text, you generated a click through, and then there's a judge pattern, which is kind of looking at is like, okay, is this ad good enough? Will this fit? If not, then you just kind of give the feedback and you loop it through. And this loop is really what makes an agent so powerful because you're able to kind of continue to kind of do that till the goal is met. A coordination pattern. This is most likely going to be the #1 pattern that you should start with if you're starting out in a multi-agentic journey. What it means is that the central orchestrator, which dispatches the work to all the other agents, and starting out in this place is going to be much better for you because it's just so much tighter control. There's one super agent that kind of controls everybody else. There's a review and critique, which is basically one agent does the job, the other agent can actually review and critique for either safety or quality and some of the other aspects of it. Hierarchically, just kind of break it up. Like the presentation that we made today was a little bit of a parallel, a little bit of a hierarchical today between. But ultimately, you will find yourself going into a swarm pattern, which is there's so many agents that will happen. You will get there someday. What I would recommend is a lot of people rush to kind of get here. Don't get there quickly because managing this is going to be a nightmare, right? So don't be in a rush to kind of get there. So in summary, what I would say is like if the complexity and context is the challenge that you have, go into a hierarchical pattern. If there is slow response or latency, go into the parallel pattern. If there's a hallucination errors are your problems, then look at the generator critic, like look at the critiquing it. And if the ambiguous user intent, then look at the coordinator pattern. With that, I pass it back to Subha, Agent Subha.
Thank you, Agent Vikash. Um, the joy of always having a live presentation. Vikash, thank you so much for your bravery and courage to be able to do that because there's always challenges there. I've been answering questions offline. Let me know if there is any more questions to be answered. But let's get through the last few parts here. So just at a very high level, let's consolidate our learnings in terms of what we learned. Multi-agent system is a framework or an ecosystem of autonomous interacting agents. They collectively solve problems. So every agent has its own goal, and they also have Uber goal as a multi-agent system. They compete, they coordinate, they achieve goals which would otherwise be difficult to do if there is a single agent. I see a lot of questions about like what is the best way to actually make a decision on single or multi-agents. I would say a couple of things. One is, Sue, we will send them this deck, right? Great.
Yes,
So in
that
this deck, there is, sorry, yeah. You were saying something, Sue?
no, I said we will send them the recording and the deck.
In the
Yes.
deck. Okay, great. There are actually a couple of slides that we did not get the time to review where it goes through what a single agent and a multi-agent system actually is. You'll also get a bonus takeaway in terms of, helping plan your multi-agent system. This is something I do with my consulting clients all the time. This is available for you for free, just for you as a thank you for, attending this session. I think with those frameworks, you will probably hopefully have more information on making informed decisions on multi-agent systems. Again, consolidating the learnings, as Vikash mentioned, multi-agent systems improves the more you share context, protocols, hierarchy, you streamline communication and standardized development. The coordination kind of framework is possibly going to be the more ubiquitous framework actually moving forward because they can be cooperative, competitive, mixed, etc. And again, other types are evolving as we speak. This is truly a cutting edge topic. The leading protocols that actually define these standards of how agents interact across the board are MCP by Anthropic and Agent to Agent by Google. Vikash and I are personally fans more of the Anthropic products overall, and so definitely MCP. Multi-agent systems is not end-to-end software yet. You also saw in the example that actually Vikash also mentioned, there is some human interaction, there are some tools, there are some specific automation requirements, etc., that are required for it to become an end-to-end system and software. But it can definitely get there. This is a bleeding edge topic. In a few months, this is probably going to evolve. So, just stay tuned and, inform all of us in terms of what is actually coming. Again, the takeaway activity is that you want to build your own MAS design. And I have a canvas that Sue and Sidebar will actually share in an email to you. You can take the Canva template. This is, again, a template that I use for my consulting clients that I charge a lot for, but you will all get it for free. I would encourage you to take some time and actually strategize and build an MAS around that. Will actually give you a lot more information.
Subha, so sorry, we have 5 minutes. What do you think is the most critical takeaway for our viewers today? And I quickly, if you could just put the survey scan on the screen while you continue to speak about it, that would be fantastic. I don't want to lose people because they start to drop at the end of the hour. So sorry.
Yes. So could you actually put the link in the chat?
I did. And I think there are so many chats after that, it'll get lost. But folks, this is my request to you, just so we don't kind of interrupt the flow. Please look at the chat and take the survey. It's very critical for both Sidebar and for our speakers, so we know what sort of conversations we want to bring back to you guys. Thank you. All right, Subha, go ahead. Thank you.
Vikash and I just wanted to take 30 seconds each to tell you a little bit about some more resources that are coming up. I have a Maven course on mastering enterprise-grade AI agents that starts February 9th. For folks that sign up today, you have a 20% discount coupon, so please take that. And also another bonus is that for the first 5 signups, I'll do a 1-hour one-on-one session with you on your AI transformation. I'm very fortunate that I have great reviews from this course. I've done this now a couple of times, and I also constantly update it for the latest and greatest content. So you will receive the latest in terms of like the information there. And these are some examples of some agents that people built in the course, like when in 2 weeks coming in as a bit of a novice, or also as somebody who has maybe experimented a little bit. I always find it gratifying that people are able to build new personal agents and new enterprise grade agents and agent strategy there. So I'd love to see some of you in the course. Over to Vikash.
Thanks, Subha. I highly recommend, guys, you look at that course. One of the things that I wanted to kind of bring to folks is something that I've launched at Meta for when I was there internally, a boot camp for product managers. And the number one question that I got is like, we don't have a lot of time. And that's why I'm bringing in a 1-week course. This is a challenge. It's more of a challenge rather than a course. It's like, can you start shipping products vibe code in a week? And in this case, if you go to the next slide, what you really get is if you go to rise2.ai, you can sign up right away. If you go to just go to the next slide.
Sorry, 1 second. I pulled up the chat window and it messed up the presentation.
Oh,
my bad.
Yeah, I was trying to be fancy by putting a link in there. But look, what we'll do is just go to the next slide.
Am I not? Sorry, Vikash. Why am I not able to go to the next?
Here, I'll share that. Hold on. So what we'll do is in the 7 days, we'll use 5 different tools, but we'll actually go from a UI whisperer to building out the entire agentic vibe coded experience. Take a look at the details on the page. I'm actually giving out a $500 discount at $499 till the course starts on Monday. So if you have questions, please reach out to me. Otherwise, I'll see you guys in there. Thanks.
Wow, what a steal, both of you. Such amazing courses and giveaways. Thank you so much for being with us today. I think you've triggered this need to learn and explore in all of our minds. That was a fantastic presentation. Thank you so much. Thank you all for being here. Please reach out to Vikash and Subha on LinkedIn. They're very engaging. Sign up to their courses. I mean, if you want to show that you really believe in learning and if you want to progress, then go ahead and check out both of their courses. And thank you again. We'll bring back more such sessions. We'll follow up this session with a wrap-up email. You should be receiving it either from me or from Sidebar directly. It'll have all of the information we shared today and links to everything that was important. Thank you for being such a great audience. You all were so interactive. The chat was exploding. This is fantastic. Thank you and have a wonderful rest of the day, everybody. Bye.
Thank you all and happy rest of the year.